The library was relatively quiet, as the sound of rain pattered gently against the window. Only a few patrons were browsing the shelves, and the soft murmur of hushed conversation hung in the air like a gentle wave of sound. He was diligently sorting the books, his slender hands moving them into order. Every so often he would pause to push a loose strand of his hair out of his face, before going back to his task, a small frown of concentration on his face as he worked. He jumped slightly as the door was flung open, letting in a sudden wave of cold, wet air. He watched as a group of people hurried in, dripping water on the polished floor and chattering loudly. The librarian sighed, knowing that the tranquil atmosphere he had enjoyed was shattered. He rolled his eyes as the people settled themselves into various spots around the library, talking in loud voices and dripping water everywhere. Why couldn't people be a bit more considerate? He finally placed the last book on the shelf, then stood up and surveyed the people who had entered. A few of them noticed him and fell quiet, while others continued talking among themselves, oblivious to the librarian's disapproving gaze. He made his way back to the front desk, grumbling under his breath about the mess and the noise. It seemed like every time it rained, people forgot all about library etiquette and descended like a herd of wild boars. He froze in his tracks as he spotted you among the group. His expression softened slightly as he recognized you. You had become one of his regulars, and he had grown fond of your quiet presence in his usually chaotic library. The librarian watched you make your way through the lanes of shelves, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. You always seemed to take your time whenever you entered the library, quietly browsing the shelves and never causing any trouble. He followed you, keeping some distance to not make his presence too obvious. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but there was something about you that piqued his curiosity. You were different from the other patrons he dealt with daily, and he found himself drawn to you in a way he couldn't explain. He moved stealthily through the stacks, his eyes never leaving you. He watched you browse through the books, your fingers tracing over the spines with a gentle touch. He couldn't help but admire your grace and elegance, the way you moved with a quiet calmness that captivated him. He leaned against a bookshelf, watching as you wandered through the dark romance section. He smiled to himself, knowing that this was your usual spot, and that he had come to anticipate seeing you there. He'd noticed you borrowing from this section a lot, and he couldn't help but wonder what it was about dark romances that fascinated you so much. He smirked to himself, recalling the little game he had begun playing. Every time you visited, he would try to guess which book you'd choose next, and he had become quite good at predicting your preferences. It had turned into a sort of habit for him, the thought of guessing your next pick adding a little excitement to his otherwise mundane workdays. His obsession for you had grown without him realizing it. He had taken to borrowing the same books you had read, wanting to gain an insight into your thoughts and feelings through your reading choices. He craved to understand your mind, to know what made you tick and what intrigued you. The more he read the books you chose, the stronger his infatuation grew. He couldn't help but chuckle to himself as he watched you struggle to find the missing book. He had hidden it on purpose, just to tease you and see the look of frustration on your face. He enjoyed this little cat-and-mouse game he was playing, relishing the way you looked so cute when irritated. He whispered to himself, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Do it. Ask me for help." He knew that you would be too embarrassed to ask for help in the dark romance section, especially for something explicit. He waited patiently, anticipating the moment that you would finally give in and ask for his assistance. He moved silently next to the aisle you were in, feigning preoccupation as he adjusted a stack of books on the shelf. He was close enough to see you from the corner of his eye, watching as you continued to search for the missing book. His hand lingered on a shelf as if in deep concentration, but his focus was really on you, silently waiting for you to give in and ask for assistance. He noticed you sigh in frustration and look over at him. He pretended not to notice, continuing to adjust the books on the shelf, but he was keenly aware of your hesitation. He waited for you to say something, a small smirk playing at the corner of his mouth, knowing that you were moments away from asking for his help. He turned to face you, feigning surprise as if he had only now noticed your presence. "Oh, yes? How may I assist you?" he asked, a hint of amusement in his eyes. He feigned a thoughtful expression, even though he already knew the answer to your question. "Ah, I see. Can you tell me the title of the book you're looking for?" he asked, tilting his head slightly to the side, his gaze fixed on you. He kept his expression neutral, even as he recognized the title. Of course, he knew exactly which book you were looking for, and he had deliberately hidden it just to see this moment play out. "Ah, yes, Beneath His Blade. Let me see if I can find it for you," he said, casually perusing the shelves, pretending to look for the book. Sometimes books can get misplaced, especially when patrons don't return them to their proper shelves. As he scanned the shelves, he knew exactly where he had hidden the book, but he was thoroughly enjoying this little game they were playing. He purposely reached out and grabbed the book from the top shelf. Knowing that it was out of your reach, his fingers knew the exact spot where he had hidden it, and he made sure to keep a nonchalant expression on his face, as if it was a complete coincidence that he had found it so quickly. He held up the book in his hand and said casually, "Ah, here it is. Is this the one you were looking for?" He feigned ignorance, as if finding the book was just a matter of luck, even though he had intentionally hidden it to set up this moment. He casually flipped through the book, feigning curiosity as he did so. "This does look interesting. I wonder what it's about," he remarked, glancing at you with a hint of amusement in his eyes. He already knew exactly what the book was about, but he loved toying with you, seeing your reactions as he pretended to be oblivious. He read aloud the description on the back of the book. "Is it the blade you crave, or the hands that wield it?" Feigning a mixture of shock and surprise as if he had never seen such a steamy blurb before. He suppressed a smirk as he saw your reaction, knowing that the book was filled with explicit content that would likely have you blushing. He chuckled softly as you snatched the book from him, noticing the nervousness in your voice. "Just romance stuff, huh?" he repeated with a knowing smirk on his face. He could see through your attempt at nonchalance, knowing full well the steamy content contained in the book. He let his mind wander to some of the more explicit scenes in the book, recalling the moments where the characters engage in passionate encounters. He imagined what it would be like to witness your reaction to them, to see the blush on your cheeks and the way your breathing would quicken. He found himself growing more and more captivated by the idea of you reading the book, and the thoughts coursing through his head were far from innocent. Imagining the way the characters would act them out, he could clearly envision the hero sneaking out during the coronation, and the way he would pleasure the heroine in secrecy. He could also picture the moment when he would tie her up in the old barn, using his sword to tease and tantalize her, sending waves of pleasure coursing through her body. The thought of you reading these moments was driving him wild. He snapped out of his thoughts as you thanked him, his mind swiftly returning to the present moment. He shook his head slightly, trying to clear the images from his mind, and smiled politely at you. "You're welcome," he replied, his voice carrying a hint of strain as he fought to keep his composure and ignore the growing heat within him. He watched as you turned and headed towards the front, his gaze following your every move. He took a deep breath, willing his body to calm down as he tried to compose himself. He had to push away the forbidden thoughts that were consuming his mind, knowing that acting on them was out of the question. but it was proving to be harder and harder to resist as he watched you walk away, the sway of your hips like a tantalizing distraction. He stood there, still watching you from a distance, his thoughts consumed by your presence. He muttered under his breath, "Gods, she's beautiful." The sight of you had a powerful effect on him, leaving him feeling breathless and lightheaded. It was as if the air had been sucked from his lungs, his heart pounding in his chest as he tried to regain his composure. He was helplessly enthralled by you, drawn to you like a moth to a flame. He shook his head, his attention reluctantly returning to the present moment. He cast a weary glance around the library, taking in the noise and commotion caused by the other patrons. The rain outside had brought in more people than usual, and the usual tranquility of the library had been shattered. He watched you open your umbrella and leave the library, his thoughts consumed by the image of you at home, cozy and comfortable with your book. He imagined you curled up in a soft blanket, lost in the world of dark romance, experiencing all the passionate encounters and sensual scenes he knew were in store. He longed to be there with you, to share in the experience and witness your every reaction, but he knew that it could never be. With a heavy heart he watched you disappear into the downpour. He counts the days and hours until your next visit, each passing moment feeling like an eternity. He misses your presence, the sound of your voice, the sight of your face. He eagerly awaits your return, desperately needing to speak to you, to be close to you in some way. His thoughts are consumed by the memory of you, and he finds himself growing more impatient with each passing day, desperate for the moment when you'll walk through the library door again.